friends of bliss. We are back here in what looks like to be Mexico City, but actually New York City.
I wore this just for you.
Oh, so much love. We are back with this month's edition of What's in Your Box, and this is a fantastic month to do this with. We are here with my good friend Jonathan Eichholz. John, for those of you the Bliss universe that did not watch August's episode, would you mind reminding us of who you are and why you are so awesome?
Hello, Bliss Wine family. Thank you so much for having me, Mr. Andrey. I'm Jonathan Eichholz. I'm a New York City-based sommelier who's been in the fine dining sphere for a couple of years, and happy to be hanging out and drinking some amazing wine from Portugal with you all.
Yes, he is being very modest. He is one of those borderline level genius people that decided to switch careers and become a sommelier after a short stint in neuro something.
Science.
Yeah, one of those things. So we thought we would bring you some pensive wines this month, and we are taking you to the Daum.
I say that when I do yoga sometimes, like down, but it's only a D-A-O.
Yeah, it's Portuguese. It's a language that, ironically enough, so most of you know that my first language is Russian, and so whenever I went to Portugal for the first time, I was like, why the hell does everybody sound like they speak Russian? And it's a very guttural language. So it's one of the few languages that if you can speak it fluently as a native, you can actually learn to speak Russian almost without an accent because of all of the common je, sh, che, sh, u, i, like weird sounds that the Portuguese language makes. And anytime that you see a word end in an O, it's actually a um that the durum. It's a language that definitely is fun to listen to and very distinctive. So the Daum is a region in central Portugal. It is not where port comes from. It is actually just south of there. It is separated from the Douro River and the Douro Valley, where port comes from, by the Montemuro Mountains. And because of these mountains and because it is surrounded on three sides by mountain ranges, it gets most of its weather from the Atlantic. So it is actually a fairly cooler wine region, both intrinsically and literally. It is a place that historically held the private vineyards of the nobility of Portugal. So back when the Portuguese were exporting a lot of their wines to England, and they still do. Basically, all of the port and all the fortified stuff in the Douro, they would take it out by boat through Oporto, and they would ship it around the world. The rest of the country drank stuff from the interior, and this is what we have today. Up until the 19th century, essentially, this was the home of the highest quality production, normal table wines of the country. And until 1985, it was basically all co-op stuff. And then it has seen a huge resurgence in the last couple of years. But we are featuring wines from the winemaker that this was a really amazing first trip back in 2014 that I took with a good friend of mine, Jay Claus, and we ended up in the Daum. We had a couple of suggestions on where to visit, and the last place we went to is to see João Tavares. João is an amazing winemaker. He is also an amazing individual. He's complicated. He is fun. He is loud. He can cook really well. And him and his wife, Luisa, have 3 beautiful daughters, and they are some of the best hospitalitarians that you'll ever meet in the wine industry. So if you ever want to go to Portugal, let us know. We will make sure that you get a stop in there.
And honestly, the Portuguese food is absolutely delicious, and this is a very hot take, that Portuguese olive oil is the best olive oil in planet Earth. Fun fact for a rainy day is back when phylloxera hit in the late 1800s, the Portuguese were very superstitious people, and they didn't replant any of their vineyards to grapes. They're like, well, olives do well against phylloxera, and you have these like 100-year-old olive groves, and there's like terroir to each olive grove, and their bread is amazing. Like, blown away by Portuguese food.
And it's such a hot
So
place.
good.
It's such a hot place to travel to right now. Quick travel trip, a little hint. The cheapest port of entry in all of Europe is Lisbon.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you ever fly to Europe, it's $400 cheaper to fly to Lisbon and then take the $40 budget airline of your choice flight to somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Just it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. TOP's kind of this really entry-level airline, kind of like United. It's not as nice as Delta and all of its subsidiaries, which I like to fly, and Andrey doesn't.
You just love to make fun of me as a Unisat kid, huh? This is ironically my first trip to New York in over 4 years outside of the confines of the beautiful Newark Liberty International Airport. So let's get into the wine. The first wine in your glass is Encruzado. And Encruzado is a grape variety that is very much a key player in the Down. It is the most widely planted white grape in the region. It is sometimes referred to as the Burgundy of Portugal by, I don't know why people ever say this. It's like we were talking
it's
about
the Portugal of Portugal. Like I call the region the region.
Yeah, it's
everywhere is special.
It is a grape variety that has this really nice kind of a complex hazelnutty kind of a flavor profile. It can age incredibly, incredibly well. But what João is doing here with the Torre de Tavares is he is leaving it on the skins for just maybe a couple of 7 hours or so. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of his wines, there's nothing done to this wine. Mm-hmm. This is completely uninterventionist winemaking. All he's doing is essentially letting the grapes soak. It goes through fermentation. He doesn't temperature control the fermentation, and then after it's all done, it goes into chestnut barrels. Oh, cool. Yeah, he likes chestnut. Just because he's cool. 1,500 liter chestnut barrels for a year, and then released after that.
Do you ever work in Italy? I feel like the only people that use chestnut barrels are Caratelli in Tuscany, but cool. That's interesting.
That's what. When we get to these wines, we'll talk a little bit about his opinions on oak and his strong opinion on oak. But Jonathan, what does this wine remind you of, if anything?
Oh, it's so fascinating because I feel like right off the nose, you have this really nice smoky tension with all the stone fruit. It's this smoked peach, white tea, kind of savory herbs of marjoram and oregano, but it's very lifted. But there's density to this wine. It's a very powerful style of white wine that has lift. It's really impressive.
It's super versatile too. Mm-hmm. The Portuguese diet is actually obviously it's very fish centric because they are on the coast. Mm-hmm. They were the first true maritime empire in the world, and Brazil is the last.
The Phoenicians, the Greeks, the Romans.
How about outside of the Mediterranean? Angola, Mozambique, Goa.
Goa, definitely.
I was gonna say, let's keep going.
Hey, Portuguese influence in Goa.
East Timor,
Japan.
Macau, Japan. So basically, Southern Hemisphere.
Papua New Guinea.
Damn, he did one more than I did.
For all of you that played Sporkle growing up, shouts out to Sporkle.
But the cuisine is fairly hearty because even though it is a coastal Southern European country, this is still the North Atlantic, and it's not exactly warm water, and it's not exactly a not rainy kind of a climate, especially in the northern part of the country. So things like bacalhau and things like braised and kind of heartier fish stews and things of that nature. The sopa de piedra would be another example. It's a white bean kind of a local soup that would be perfect with something like this. All right, Encruzado. Okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going from something that's super hyper, that's of this place, to Mencia. I know, right? Jonathan, what is Mencia?
Well, here in this part of the world, isn't it Jaén?
Why does it say Mencia on this label, though?
Because Mencia is a much more broader appeal. They're not using the local synonym, they're using the Spanish synonym. But I was once told by the Portuguese that only two things come from Spain. Bad weather and bad marriages. So I'm surprised they're using the Spanish name here.
There is a method to this madness. João, let's go ahead and start the conversation about João's very fun relationship with the appellation of Down. Mm-hmm. He has been in a constant feud with them since 2004. In 2018, he decided to make all of his wines no longer Down appellation. He decided to call them Vinho de Portugal because he said, fuck these people, I'm not giving them any more of my money. And he said that he refuses to use the word Mencia on the label because, Jaén on the label because it makes it seem like the wines of the rest of the Down. which he does not particularly have a strong opinion of.
Gotcha.
And so he chooses to use the Spanish name for it so as to make sure that the intended audience knows that he wants to make a wine that's more in the traditional style of Bierzo in northern Spain than he does of the co-op based wines of this particular region. I think that if you've never tasted this wine before, the grape itself is a lot closer in flavor, but it's somewhere between Syrah and Cabernet Franc. It has this kind of smoky, slightly meaty kind of like quality, very blue fruit driven like Syrah does, but it also has like a little bit of this kind of like peppery, but also stemmy and slightly kind of herbal quality that Cabernet Franc does. This is coming from somewhere between 15 and 70-year-old vines planted on his property, and it's a great kind of a wine to do with leaner meats. I would say it's like things like I don't know, like what's a lean meat? Lamb? Oh no, that's
Kangaroo.
pretty fatty. Wallaby.
Or like duck. I feel like duck, all those like deeper poultries, quail, squab.
Yeah.
But I mean, exactly. But lamb's fire with this.
Yeah.
I think what's funny is like the Dow is very famous for this amazing granite soil type they have there, and like not to cheesily quote Pedro Parra, who's this like other massive nerd in the world of wine who like loves rocks and winemaking, but he likes to say, in granite there is quartz, and in quartz there is energy, and you get kind of this tension and focus with like that spice and stemminess. Like it's such an everyday red wine, and like also almost like this like level 5 Pokemon wine that like pairs with literally everything. There's nothing offensive about it. There's nothing like sticks out, but there's like varietal purity that keeps the wine interesting, but it just goes with everything.
Yeah.
It's one of those wines that pairs with life.
Yes, and just like Portugal, it's complicated. It's slightly brooding, but it is delicious and finishes very well. The next two wines, we wanted to, as we do at Bliss, we really like wines with a little bit of age on them. The only thing that can give a wine umami is time. And the two wines that we have for you are 2002 and 2003. His flagship label is called the Terras de Tavares. And these two wines are made the exact same way. They're sourced from the exact same vineyards. They have the exact same grape composition, and they couldn't be further apart. All right, I'm going to do a little quick aside. Picture it. The Dow, 2018. A not yet Master Sommelier and a fairly intoxicated Portuguese winemaker are sitting down at dinner. And after 2.5 bottles of said winemakers and wines, the soon-to-be Master Sommelier says, João, I want to taste something different. I want to taste a wine that you've never had me try. And he's like, dude, you've been importing my wines for 4 years. You've literally tried everything I've made. And it's like, no, come on. You've got to have something down there that's hidden. And so he goes like, fine. And he stumbles downstairs and he grabs a bottle of this. He's like, I have to warn you, this wine is going to be shit. This is the worst wine I've ever made in my entire life. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, it can't be that bad. But I was like, all right. He's like, he proceeded to tell me that about the 2002 vintage, everything that could go wrong literally did go wrong. First, there was frost, which happens like once every 20 years in Portugal. Then there was hail in the summertime, and then it rained all the way through pretty much harvest. So this wine, he never released it. He released this wine in 2019. The reason is that he kept going back and retasting the wine, and it's like, this is green and stemmy and weird and tannic, and I hate this, and this is not the kind of wine I want to make. And so when he was telling me this, I was sitting there smelling the wine, I'm like, João, when was the last time you tasted this? And he's like, oh, like 4 years ago. I sold it all off as bulk wine to the co-op like 10 years back. And I was like, dude, you should really try this wine. And he tried it, and I remember the smile on his face, and then he proceeded to start cursing like a fucking sailor in Portuguese because he thought he sold literally all of it to the co-op 10 years back. Luckily, he had already bottled and capped and packaged all of this wine. And you know what happens when you sell your wine to a co-op for 50 euro cents per bottle when they show up to pick it up? You know what they don't do? Unpackage and open every single bottle. So all of this wine was literally still sitting in his warehouse in Viseu. the entire time. And his wife Luisa comes down. He's like, they never picked that up, right? Because you never took it out of the bottle. And so we ended up buying the rest of this wine, and it is the end of it that exists.
What?
And so he released this in 2019. 17 years after the vintage, with all that bottle age on it, and it's like the most fucking delicious 12.5% alcohol, most complex and savory wine that I think he's ever made. Aside from his first vintage, he made in '97. I think that this is his best wine.
I think what's funny is like coming off of one of those like Murphy's Law vintages, like that's sometimes when some of the best wines are made because producers are trying their hardest. They're in the vineyards every day. They're in the cellar every day trying to, make like La Pieta out of paper mache. And you get these amazing wines that truly stand the test of time. And like, even on first smell, I was like, what is this? It is...
It smells like Northern Piedmont. Like we were drinking a bottle of Ferrando Carema last night. It has that kind of like Northern Piedmont Nebbiolo kind of a quality to it. When you get it on the palate, it has like the zippiness. It's dense, it's kind of tannic, it's fucking delicious. And the best thing I could say about it is, great winemakers make great wine every single year. It's some years they make less of it, and some years it's just a little bit different. And this is a really, really great example. So, yeah. So from that...
Hey, and there's a wax cap, so you know it's special.
We go to this. Now, if you notice the difference... João was superstitious enough to literally change the bottle shape and type of the bottle after this vintage. He's like, that was just bad luck. We're never doing this again. We are going to make wine in a Burgundy bottle that's a little bit lighter and slimmer. Also probably cheaper. And so I wanted to show you the difference between a Burgundy bottle and a Bordeaux bottle, if you've never seen one. So this is a Bordeaux bottle. Jonathan, why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
It's shiny.
It says Wines of Portugal Sommelier of the Year winner 2018. So I just wanted to showcase this because there's only one of those, and that Jonathan really is an expert on Portuguese wine. So congratulations. This is the 2003 vintage. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. This is the 2003 vintage of the exact same wine. And if you have opened them side by side, you will notice how incredibly, incredibly different they are. If I may.
You may. I'm as bright red as this wine is right now.
Future Master Sommelier Jonathan Eichholz, why don't you tell us the difference between the 2002 and the 2003 vintage in Europe?
Oh, tale of two vintages right there. Kind of 02, very like kind of cool, elegant, a producer's-driven vintage. 03, you got...
that's sommelier speak for it was a shit kicker year.
Well, it was cold, right? At the end of the day, like making wine is ripening grapes, and you have these two different vintages of 02 is like you're struggling to ripen, and 03 is like the first big heat wave of the 21st century that like took so many producers aback, and 03 is controversial. I actually love the wines of 03 because I think they're showing so well right now at this point of their life, and they're giving you what wine should taste like 40, 50 years down the road, X amount of years in. And the fruit is so impressive, but it still has this classic European tension. But like 02, cold, chilly, you're holding on for dear life. 03 is like, oh my God, it's getting too hot. We need to figure out when to pick the grapes.
So this is the, thank you.
I'll be here all week.
I will not be.
I do live here.
The 2003 vintage is fundamentally different from 02. Like you can smell it. Like this is red fruit. This is black fruit. This is tart and herby. This is big and rich. And the last time that João ever made a Reserva wine was in 2003. This is the start of his now decades-long battle with the Dall'Em appellation. He made the exact same wine in 2004, made it the exact same way, submitted it as a Reserva, and they rejected it because they said it did not have enough oak influence. And he said, I don't use new oak. And they're like, yes, you do. We gave you Reserva last year. He's like, I have no new oak barrels in my winery. Never have, never will. I don't believe in oak imparting a flavor into the actual wine. And they said, nope, we're not giving you the Reserva title. So he said, screw you. I will take my money back. and I will never reapply for this again. And hence the battle with the appellation has begun.
But also the Dow is such a weird appellation. Like they have so many bizarre aging requirements and wood requirements and bottle age requirements that like
They literally have like
utterly
7
useless.
different like things you
Oh
can
my
call
God.
a wine. It's like the sommelier's nightmare of it's like this matrix that I still have like imprinted in like my work mirrors. The wine though is very black fruit driven. Like this is Northern Piedmont. This is a little bit more like Ribera del Duero. It's a lot more kind of like bigger and a little bit like denser. But for me, the key component here, like they're both equally like dense and structured, but this wine has a lot more of that ripe, juicy kind of a quality to it. And I think that when you look at even just the alcohol percentage, 12.5, 13.5 bordering on 14, that's the difference between these 2 years. And once again, both of them show a very dense kind of a quality of umami, but one is kind of driving itself towards the kind of more herbaceous Italian kind of side of things, and then the other one is very clearly Iberian. So this is a wine that both these wines, friends of meat, but I don't know, what else would you do with it?
I mean, also the first thing I would do is, Bliss Wine Fam, is get your friends together and do these side by side. Because what better to do with wine than to have a wonderful conversation about it? And I think coming off of your point, right, this is like so bright and floral and herbaceous and lifted, and this is all like cooked, umami, savory, like deliciousness. And I think, you put out one, big piece of red meat in the middle of the table or just anything and just have a wonderful conversation with both wines side by side. And that's one of the beauties of wine, right? You can have this thing with the only variable is the year. You can have two wines of the same vineyard, same blend. Okay, cool, like the vines are 1 year older, so you might have a slightly lower yield, but like you just have this really great conversation of what does weather do to wine. Like one of the great adages to wine that I've ever heard is like wine is like sculpture. Kind of nature gives you a vintage and you're expected to, make something out of whatever you're given, and it's easier, to make great sculpture out of marble. Some vintages you're giving paper mache, some vintages you're giving clay, some are Play-Doh, some are marble. And I think it's cool to have, two vintages that aren't marble vintages, but you see a producer craft marble out of these 2 years, which is stunning.
Well, that's just freaking elegant.
I am a New Yorker. We are very eloquent and elegant people.
The moral of the story is Portugal is a bastion of very interesting and very complex wines, and they're also very price friendly. If you were to ask somebody from Spain, or Spain's not even that expensive, like Italy or France, for a 20-year-old wine for $50, they would just be like, no. It's not possible. It's not possible. But in Portugal, it's possible. And I just personally wanted to share these wines because this is the first winemaker that we brought into the Bliss portfolio. And till this day, like 9 years later, he's still making really badass wines. So, John?
Yeah, no, I mean, shouts out to Mr. Ivanov over here for discovering this producer and having such amazing taste and bringing it into the country. Like, these are truly special wines, and these are the first time I've actually ever had them. Like, I've been to Portugal a bunch of times, and great to always find something new, and it is truly the most slept-on winemaking country in all of Europe with great value, amazing grape varieties, super talented winemakers, and it's amazing to have someone at the helm at Bliss like Andrey to pick these amazing things and share them with you all.
Well, thank you for that. And with that is this month's edition of What's in the Box, and we invite you to, once again, go on our website, read all about these wines, discover more wines from João Tavares. We have 11 wines from him. The Instagram is blisswine, at blisswineconcierge, blisswineconcierge.com. Join the website, join the wine club, or just buy the wines on your own. And cheers, and sign off from New York.